Hello, lovely people. So I am here today to answer this lovely question I've had from one of my followers on which foods to include to support gut health. So this is a really nice question for me. I love talking about gut health. I love talking about food. So yeah, let's have a real focus on that and kind of break it down a little bit. So some of the two main food groups or groups of foods that you can incorporate into your diet or your daily regime to support your gut health is pre and probiotics. So prebiotics and probiotics. And some of you might have heard of these terms or seen them on social media, but I want to break it down in terms of what this means, what they are, and also how you can incorporate them into your daily regime, because we want simple solutions and easy ways to make a difference, I suppose. So starting with the prebiotics, well, first of all, I should explain, maybe it's easier to start just quickly on the probiotics, but in theory, we should start with the prebiotics. But the probiotics is the one that you might have heard of most, because these are the live bacteria themselves. So if we can get sources of probiotics in our diet or in supplements, this is the good gut bacteria that your body craves and that we often want to get these in and up the numbers. But what people often perhaps miss out, a little step that they miss, I've done a video on this really recently actually, is the prebiotics, because the prebiotics are the support system for your probiotics. The prebiotics act as the food for your probiotics and or creating a favourable environment. So we often do better or can do better by incorporating prebiotics into our diet. And actually the prebiotics can do well with or without probiotics technically, because we do naturally have an already existing balance of bacteria in your gut. And even if this balance isn't optimal, it's a little bit off, we do still have good bacteria there. We maybe just need to support the numbers and support them a bit more. So sometimes with mild gut issues, we can do well just on a prebiotic alone, because that can get in and start feeding and nurturing your good gut bacteria that already exist and maybe just needs a little bit of support. So this is why I often talk about the prebiotics first and trying this first before we then jump to the probiotics. And as I say, these things can exist in foods, drinks, or supplements, but I'm trying to focus more so on the food and drinks side just for the sake of this video. So for prebiotics, they exist naturally in different fibres, so different sources of fibre act as prebiotic because we don't absorb fibres completely. These are indigestible components of our food. And this is for good reason, because then they can make it to the large intestine, and this means that they can become food for our gut bacteria, because if we absorbed them all, then there wouldn't be anything left for the gut bacteria. So this is why fibre is really important as part of your daily diet, because they act as food for your gut bacteria. So particular fibres may arguably be better prebiotics. These can be foods that some people find problematic. So that could be a sign that your gut bacteria is a little bit off. So things like onions, garlic, leeks, they are really good prebiotics, and some people may struggle with them, so that can be a little flag. But yeah, those are good. Artichokes are a really good prebiotic. Just you can even get these in the jar rather than have to prep them yourself. Lots of fruits, apples, bananas. These can also be really good prebiotic components. And the key is to get variety as well. There's lots of other kind of whole grains, barley, oats. So there's different categories in terms of your fruit, your vegetables, your whole grains. And if we can get a bigger variety in our diet, our daily diet, mixing it up each day, then it can help to support the different strains of bacteria, and it can translate into a wider spectrum of bacteria over time. In terms of some other prebiotics, we do have some other kind of drink options. So this Mulkazan here contains L plus lactic acid, and this, it is technically a supplement, but I just add it to my water each day. I don't really see it as a supplement as such. But this L plus lactic acid acts as a prebiotic because the bacteria, when they're happy in your gut, produce this substance. So it's not so much food, but it's almost like the air they breathe, but not, because they're anaerobic. But it's basically keeping your bacteria happy and creating a favourable internal environment. So if we can provide the food and the correct environment, this means your good gut bacteria can thrive. Other kind of food/supplement options in terms of prebiotics are these fibres, as I talked about, that do exist in food, but you can get them in slightly more supplement type options like inulin, and then FOS and GOS. So these are types of prebiotic fibres again, and if you get them in supplement form, it just means that the levels are slightly higher. Now, I do say to start low. Same with the Mulkazan, but the Mulkazan is actually gentler because it is what the bacteria are used to, if you like. They produce it. But with the fibres, you do want to start low. The Mulkazan as well to some extent, but the fibres, the inulin and options like that, start really low because it can be quite a change for the bacteria if they've not been used to it. So start with the foods. Mulkazan can be an option, and then you could also try those other prebiotic options if you like. So then once we've got the prebiotic exposure and your daily diet, working these things gradually into your diet, then you could also think about probiotic options as well. Again, starting with foods, this would be basically all your fermented food options, because with fermented foods, as bacteria are introduced at the start, and then they feed on the food within the favourable environment that is created, and then they produce more bacteria, they multiply, and that's why these foods are classed as probiotic, because they contain the actual bacteria themselves. So fermented options like your sauerkraut, kimchi. I've actually got one. I was raiding my fridge to see what I had in at the moment, so I've been using this one recently. So kimchi is a bit like sauerkraut, but it's just a little bit spicier, a little bit more fragrant. So I quite like that. It's got lots of garlic, a bit of chili, ginger, just a bit radish as well, which is nice. Just a little bit slightly fierier. The sauerkraut is a little bit blander, but those are really good options. You can make them yourself at home. Just get experimental with, make sure you've got a nice jar and follow the instructions. So yeah, the fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, and miso, lots of fermented soy products available. Then you have drinks, kind of like kefir, is a nice one. There's lots of those on the shelves these days and in health food stores and things. Again, the key for me is to start low, just a little bit each day. Also get your variety in. We don't want to have too much of one type, because then potentially we could kind of throw the balance of bacteria off further. So just start low and make it a habit really, and get the variety in there, and that's really the best way to support your gut health in terms of foods. As you'll see in my other videos, there's lots of other ways to support your gut health, just even before we think about what we eat. So in terms of how you eat, how you chew, how your digestion is actually working, because it's all well and good if we pick the right foods or supplements to include, but if your digestion actually isn't working properly, then you may be struggling to break these down or absorb them or make the best use of them. So that's what I'm all about in a lot of my videos, talking through all those different processes. But yes, I tried my best just to stick to some of the kind of foodie options there, and to talk about the differences with the pre and probiotics. And as I say, you can include you could arguably include the prebiotics separately, especially the food-based sources. They should be a staple of everyone's diet really anyway. But the things like Mulkazan, you can include it just on its own. But I would also always say, if you're taking a probiotic, to consider adding in a prebiotic as well, just to get the most favourable results, and also the longest term results, really, to help those bacteria really survive and really thrive. Hope it was helpful. See you soon.